Cody Rhodes did not win the Royal Rumble. Cody Rhodes did not win the Elimination Chamber. But Cody Rhodes has somehow punched his ticket to WrestleMania. That's right. This week on SmackDown, we saw a title change. We saw two new number one contenders for both tag team championships. And we saw face to face with Rhea and Jade Cargill amid their heated rivalry that has began this week on via social media. All that and so much more on this week's episode. Welcome to Wrestling Brother Talk Smack. I am your host, Jarvis Sam. Thanks for joining me. Before we jump into this week's content, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Also, hit the notification bell so that you can get updates each and every time we upload new content. And we are on the road to WrestleMania, so it's no better time to get on board with a great wrestling show. And this is a great wrestling show. So, like and subscribe so you can get this content each and every week. Also, let's keep the conversation going this week. Follow me on my socials: TikTok, Wrestling Brother on TikTok, and on Instagram, I am Wrestling Brother. And both of them have an A at the end. So let's jump right in. So, as I mentioned, Cody Rhodes is headed to the main event of WrestleMania yet again. This time by defeating Drew McIntyre on this week's episode of Friday Night SmackDown. There was some interference by Jacob Fatu to ensure that the chair shot that Drew had lined up for Cody didn't actually happen. That caused enough for Cody Rhodes to then hit Drew McIntyre with the crossroads and the eventual win. And now Cody Rhodes will face Randy Orton in the main event of WrestleMania for night one, I'm sure. It's kind of a mixed bag, right? Because I was really starting to dig the Drew McIntyre title run. He's never gotten a proper title run. He was the champion during the era where nobody was in the buildings, right? Then he regains the championship for just a few moments at WrestleMania, and that was when CM Punk took that moment from him, and Damian Priest was able to cash in and become the world heavyweight champion. And now here we have again, he wins a three stages of hell match just a few short weeks ago on SmackDown. And now, right going into Mania season, he drops it again. Now, with everything said, absolutely the right call for a one-on-one match for the main event of night one of WrestleMania. The only with the players that we have right now, Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes is that match. So it's not even about that. It's about it's not about the destination. It's about the journey there. And so the journey there has told us a whole different story. The story that's being told is that Drew McIntyre, since he's become champion, has made a lot of enemies, and he's even low key made an enemy of Nick Aldis, the GM of the brand that he is on. So the logical Mania match for him, because there wasn't a big Mania match, and it's not Drew's fault that there wasn't a big Mania one-on-one match for him. Listen, he's had the ongoing feud with Cody Rhodes that if we had gotten another match between those two would have absolutely fell completely flat, and it would not have felt special. WrestleMania, those main events should be low-key dream matches, right? Matches that you've never seen these two rivals go against each other, these two competitors go against each other in a one-on-one match. So yes, but they dropped the ball with telling the right story to get us there. And that's a shame because the Randy Orton Cody Rhodes story can absolutely write itself. But they're not allowing it to write itself. And that is a doggone shame. Having said that, I do think this again. I do think this is the right match for a one-on-one match. It's the biggest match we have with between two one-on-one male superstars outside of Roman Reigns and CM Punk. So it's absolutely the right match. But, right now, both of them are baby faces. We also have both CM Punk and Roman Reigns that are baby faces. So you got a baby face heavy main event scene for WrestleMania. There has to be somebody to get a heel turn to really draw in some real heat because these matches do need some heat on them. Now, we saw Roman Reigns and CM Punk's segment from Raw, so we know that they are adding layers of heat to that, and I fully anticipate on Roman Reigns' next promo with CM Punk. Larry's going to get buried. Sorry, Larry. I know Larry's already gone, but Larry's going to get buried by Roman Reigns. But I digress. Anyway, Cody Rhodes defeats Drew McIntyre in the main event of SmackDown last night. Well, that was the close. The show opened with Randy Orton, the winner of the Elimination Chamber, Randy Orton, coming down to ringside. And, he said something that I never put into any thought. He talked about how he doesn't talk about how great he is and this, that, and the third. But then he threw this number out there where he said he's been in 20 WrestleManias. Now, we all know Randy's been around for a long time. We know he's a 14-time champion. We know he is, Hall of Fame bound, one of the greatest of all time. And he threw out of the 20, he's only been in two main events. And I looked up those main events. I knew one of them was him versus Triple H at Mania 25 because that one got kind of the shit end of the stick at that Mania that I was actually at. That was the one where Shawn Michaels and Undertaker tore the house down for 40 minutes. And then this match between Triple H and Randy Orton, which actually had a lot of heat on it, had to come on after that. And it just kind of fell flat because you're coming on after an absolute classic. And then the other one was at WrestleMania 30, the triple threat. And that just shows how reliant WWE has been over the years on a handful of people. Obviously, Roman Reigns has dominated the main event scene the last 8 to 10 years, right? But you got to think, thinking about the totality of Randy Orton's career, most of those main events probably had John Cena in there. Then you're talking, segueing right from John Cena to then probably Brock Lesnar having these main events and now Roman Reigns. So he just really, he was always kind of the 1A to John Cena's one. And so he just never necessarily got those main events, but he's also a person that didn't need to headline WrestleMania to have a match that mattered and to fill out the card. Like he's had great WrestleMania matches. I mean, that match he had with Undertaker was great, and he's done some really good work. But only two main events, so this will be seen as I'm sorry, Randy Orton's third Mania main event in his illustrious career. No sooner he's talking about that, he is interrupted by one of the most over talent, if not the most over talent, in Trick Williams. He comes out, gets a nice ovation. He does draw some heat, so it's good to see that he's still able to draw heat as that heel, even though he gets that tremendous pop when he comes out. So that means he's doing good work. This segment really didn't have anything to do with anything other than getting Trick Williams on television. And, I don't like the fact that, he had a good showing at Elimination Chamber. He hit the media blitz this week. He was on the Breakfast Club. He was on Peter Rosenberg and Ebro's show earlier in the week. So he's really having a media blitz and a big week for him. And he, again, just headlining a major PLE in it's in that elimination chamber, just and now he comes out here. He pretty much confronts Randy Orton just because Randy Orton's like, you're not really 6'5", and he's like, hey, you gonna say it to my face that I'm not 6'5", and he pulls up and he is 6'5", and he talks about his lemon pepper steppers real quick, and yeah, he gets an RKO and left for dead. Trick Williams is one of those characters I believe that can come. He's so good on the mic and he's so charismatic. His entrance is so over that he'll bounce back from that. I think he's going to be one of those characters, kind of like a Chris Jericho, or even like a Shawn Michaels, where losses just don't hurt you, or moments like that don't hurt you, because you're going to come back and cook more on the mic. you know the Rock, when he was a heel, stuff like that would happen to him. He'd come out and talk mess and then catch a stone cold stunner, but he's still over because he was The Rock, right? So I think the same for Trick Williams. So I don't think he's buried because he took an RKO, but I just think the segment didn't mean anything, because that's not going to be Trick Williams' main WrestleMania opponent. It's obviously not going to be Randy Orton's WrestleMania opponent. So what's the point? Like, if you're going to have that Trick Williams appearance, let's make use of that, by building what he's going to be building towards for his Mania match. All right. So all week long, we've been hearing about this. Is it a work? Is it a shoot between Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley? They've had some back and forth on social media, and you've had some of the girls from the locker room, Chelsea Green and others, come to Rhea's defense and all this. And in my mind, they're really just using a little bit of maybe some real tension and bringing it to life to try to add some heat to this match, because otherwise it's a cold, cold rivalry that's just built on Rhea Ripley, who's actually a Raw superstar, winning the Elimination Chamber. But since this is the title that's available, this is the title she's going to go for. So they're trying to add some heat to this matchup. But what they did in this promo, Jade Cargo comes out first. No, I'm sorry. Rhea comes out first, and then the champ comes out. And Jade just talks about, how her body is, like, it's like, you got nice shoulders, but mine are better. You got nice legs, but mine are better, and this, that, and the third. And, just pretty much saying that, hey, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, and I'm that bitch. Rhea gets the mic, says, hey, mind you, forgot to mention this. Rhea shook her hand before she said all this, and then Jade Cargill shakes her hand, and then they just have this exchange. But then Rhea gets the microphone and says, you may have bigger shoulders and bigger arms and bigger this, bigger that, but your body is built for show. My body is built to fight. So that's the difference. So she was like, if you think that you're gonna knock me down and I'm not gonna get up, you got another thing coming. And then she proceeds to say, because I'm that bitch. So this is basically the match to find out who really is that bitch. I guess we'll find out at Mania. I was expecting a much more heated segment here, especially following everything that had transpired with everybody talking about the heat between the two, or is it a work, is it a shoot, to really add that. And it was a basic promo. I mean, there's nothing bad about the promo, but it wasn't a promo that made me feel like, oh, this is that match to watch. This should go on. Like, they should be having promos to the point where it feels like, damn, I wonder, is this going to main event night one, or is Cody and Randy going to main, like, that's where they should be building to, especially with the heat that is now kind of being talked about between the two. Use that heat to generate like like that it's a natural blood feud, and really capitalize off of that. But again, and I know that we've got still 6 weeks yet, so maybe they don't have to get extremely physical early. I've mentioned before, I like it better when there's two competitors that you've never seen square off in a one-on-one or at all, to kind of keep them apart as much as possible, to keep to where maybe they don't even touch, maybe the tension is all verbal, and then at Mania you actually get the major payoff of that. But we'll see. We've got, like I said, 6 weeks left, so we'll see if they clean that up. If I'm honest, the rest of the show was mid. I mean, even the stuff I mentioned was pretty mid, but like those were the things that I think I was most looking forward to, and they fell a little flat. Danhausen had a segment backstage. I thought it was great. Danhausen, say what you will, his introduction to WWE was not his fault. It was totally, a horrible move on WWE's part, having him, in this crate that's been, and maybe maybe if the crate had not been a mystery, maybe if the crate had just been hauled out on Elimination Chamber, it would have felt different. But you bring this thing out almost a month before Elimination Chamber, and you kind of have it kind of lingering in limbo. We don't know what's going to happen with the crate. We don't know what's inside the crate. We don't know any of this. So it's like, hey, what's the mystery? And then for it to be this reveal, it fell flat. But his appearances on both programming this week were good. And this week on SmackDown, he's back there and he's going over his list of demands with Nick Aldis. His list of demands with Nick Aldis were similar to, he had a list of demands on Monday night with Adam Pearce as well. And so Danhausen's like, yeah, I need you to help me with my Hall of Fame induction. I need you to get me a mentor. And so Nick Aldis sees Miz backstage, and he tells Miz, he says, hey, man, he says, I appreciate all the work you've done. He said, I really got somebody I think you should work with, and, Miz is like, feeling himself or whatever. And then he introduces him to Danhausen, and Danhausen's like, oh, wow, it's the Miz. And it's the most must see WWE superstar of all time. And Miz is just looking like, oh my God. Listen, Danhausen, that there's comedy segments that sometimes fall flat. This guy actually has the formula for good and entertaining comedy segments. Somebody had mentioned that somebody was insulting WWE by comparing it to Saturday Night Live or whatever. Listen, a good wrestling show is a variety show. You should get a little bit of everything, including a little bit of comedy. And if Danhausen's going to provide that comedic relief, I'm all for it. So speaking of comedic relief, we see Johnny Gargano laid out again, and this time Candice LeRae is telling him, "Look, I need the old Johnny Gargano back." He pops up and says, "You know what? I'm one of the most talented wrestlers in the industry. It's about time that I get back to being myself." He proceeds to go out to the ring, and he cuts a quick promo saying that, he wants to get back to being Johnny Wrestling, and he wants to take some he wants to have somebody come out there and face him right then and there. Obafemi answers the challenge. Obafemi absolutely annihilates the guy. You know, if you're and I don't think this was to reestablish Johnny Gargano, but if that was anywhere in the realm of anything, he was almost better off just laying on that damn crate stretched out, because Obafemi just obliterated him. And yes, you want to have Obafemi. This is the way Obafemi should be being booked. But I think right now, with Tommaso Ciampa leaving and going to AEW, who was his partner, right? DIY was they were partners, And now he doesn't have that tag team. It's time to reestablish him as a threat in some capacity in the mid card. And he's one of those wrestlers. I remember Dave Meltzer talking about ad nauseum how great Johnny Gargano was in the ring, and so I know he's a phenomenal wrestler in the ring. He can talk on the mic a little bit, but it just shows where they see him, and that's just been where he's been at ever since he's gotten to the main roster. He has literally been um, up. His peak has been through tag teams with Tommaso Ciampa, which really got nowhere. So that's how that played out. We had a U.S. title open challenge. I am ready for Mello to just abandon this. Or lose the title to somebody who then abandons it. But I'm over it. He ends up facing the challenge was answered by the AAA Latin American champion, um, Mr. Wagner. You it it was okay. I mean, these matches are literally the same virtually every week. It's a good 2 or 3 segment wrestling match where the opponent gets a couple near falls. You're really showcasing the opponent, and then Carmelo Hayes gets the win with the first 48. That's if you've seen one, you've seen them all. I think the only one that's been a little different was the one with last week with Matt Cardona, which was definitely a peg below the rest of them. But this thing needs to end. This thing absolutely needs to end. We see our Truth and Damian Priest backstage, and Damian Priest is actually talking to Nick Aldis before our Truth come appears. Then our Truth appears and he say, "Hey, you haven't told Damian about everything." He said, "Oh yeah, Truth, we in some turmoil. I'm in turmoil and you in turmoil." And he said, "Hey, what is this guy talking about?" And he says, "Hey, um, you guys are going to tag and you're going to compete in tag team turmoil tonight to determine the number one contenders for the tag team championship." I don't think that was the WrestleMania match that Damian Priest was lobbying for, but hey, it's the cards he's dealt right now. They go on and they win tag team turmoil, which it's like it's like WWE is higher on Damian Priest than they are some of the tag teams. So let's put Damian Priest in a tag team to give him something to do when you have real tag teams like the Street Profits, who we haven't seen in forever, like the Motor City Machine Guns. Like there's these tag teams that you should actually be building up and doing something with, and then you just throw this makeshift tag team together, and now they're going to get a championship match. It just it what a fall from grace for Damian Priest to go from a year and a half ago being at top of the world, being the world heavyweight champion, to now being in a tag team with R Truth, who has been a perennial just comedy act and everything. It's crazy. And then finally, we had a segment with Lash Legend and Nia Jax, the Irresistible Forces, celebrating their championship title win from last week, where they defeated Io Sky and Rhea Ripley for the women's tag team championships. They come out and they talk about how they're 6 foot powerhouses, and any team that want to get an opportunity at that to step up, but just know if you when you step up, you're gonna get done up. And so of course Charlotte and Alexa come out. Alexis talks about how the only reason they have those championships is because when they were champions, they came out and cheated and cost them the championships against the Kabuki Warriors. And they kind of are throwing their name in the hat for the next title contenders for those championships. But then Julia and Kiana James comes out. Who Kiana James? She's growing on my list of women that I'm digging right now. And she talks about her recent success. She says, "Hey, last time I checked, when I was in the triple threat match with Nia Jax and Charlotte Flair, I came up on top, and I went on to the Elimination Chamber." She talked about, um, just the success that she's seen, and anyway, Nick Aldis comes out and, of course, makes this a number one contenders match for the tag team championships between the Charlotte and Alexa and Julia and Kiana James. And Charlotte and Alexa win after Charlotte gets the pinfall over Julia. So they are going to get their title opportunity against the Irresistible Forces. Not sure if that's going to be set for a Raw. I mean, I'm sorry, for a SmackDown, or if this is the direction for Mania. I would assume the direction for Mania is going to be some sort of multi-team match. So I'm thinking this is going to be a blow off match on a SmackDown that's going to turn into something bigger. I expected the Bella twins to show up or something, but maybe that's yet to come. Anyway, this episode of SmackDown was. I don't know if this was Road Dogg's last script and he left and he said, "Hey, this is the last I got," and they had to work with it because he was terminated just the day before. Not terminated, but he asked for his release the day before and was granted that. And maybe that was just the last remnants. Hopefully, because we got to start telling some good stories. WrestleMania's got to be the culmination of pretty much a year's worth of storytelling, and I'm just not seeing it. So hopefully there's something more to some more layers to a lot of these stories and a lot of these matchups that we're gonna get, because this show really didn't drive home anything other than the whole point of this show was just to get the belt back on the Cody Rhodes. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you. Make sure, if you haven't already, you hit that like and subscribe button and you smash the notification bell so that you can get updates each and every time we drop new wrestling content. Also, there is our affiliates link. If you are in the market for anything WWE, it is going to be in the WWE shop via our affiliates link. It will cost you nothing extra to use our affiliates link when you want to get your WWE championship like the one you see behind me. It's no extra cost to you, but it gives us a little kickback so that we can continue to provide you with the absolute best content we possibly can. Once again, thanks for joining me. This is Wrestling Brother Talk Smack, where we do not pop for the moments, we analyze the moments. Until next time.